Talk about cutting it close. Deval Patrick jumped into the race just under the wire with barely enough time to get his name on the presidential primary ballot and first in the nation, New Hampshire, ahead of tomorrow's deadline there. The former Massachusetts governor also made his case to the voters at large this morning on CBS News.
We have a really talented, really gifted, and a very hard-working and hard-sacrificing field of Democratic candidates. But we seem to be migrating to, on the one camp, sort of nostalgia. Let's just get rid, if you will, of the incumbent president, and we can go back to doing what we used to do. Or, it's our way, our big idea, or no way.
Patrick looks to be trying to set himself apart from frontrunner Joe Biden and progressives Sanders and Warren. But even as he downplays the impact of Trump on the Democratic primary, the impeachment hearings have sucked a lot of the oxygen out of the race, most recently with the testimony about that previously unknown phone call.
Ambassador Sondland told President Trump the Ukrainians were ready to move forward. Following the call with President Trump, the member of my staff asked Ambassador Sondland what President Trump thought about Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland responded that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden, which Giuliani was pressing for.
Acting Ambassador to Ukraine Bill Taylor told lawmakers he just found out about that call, which apparently happened the day after Trump's July 25th conversation with the president of Ukraine. And today the AP is reporting a second embassy official overheard the same thing. And while Democrats continue to say this is about patriotism and not politics, it's clear as the process moves forward, impeachment is going to play a big role for Democrats in 2020.
If the House goes forward and sends an impeachment over to the Senate, then I will be there for the trial.
She and likely the other 5 senators in the race, too. Although if you ask NBC's Chuck Todd, like I did this morning on the radio, that might not be so good for Republicans either.
You want to take her off the trail for a month and let Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, Deval Patrick, all that does is leave the playing field for the more electable Democrats.
Joining me are my colleague, GBH reporter Adam Reilly. You were in New Hampshire today with him, right? Yes, he was. Boston Globe columnist Adrian Walker. Adrian, it's great to see you. And Charles Chieppo, senior fellow at the Pioneer Institute, former policy director for Governor Romney, who is not running for president, as far as I know. So you wrote, and I quote in your column there, Adrian, best political candidate I've ever seen, bar none, Deval Patrick. And then you go on to say, don't run. Why?
Because it's just too late. I think the logistics here are insurmountable. But I will say he is a great candidate. If anybody can get in at this stage and do it, it might be Deval Patrick.
I learned yesterday, as I said on the air, the last candidate to enter this late, does anybody know? 1980, Ronald Reagan. He did fairly well, didn't he? So you were there today. What kind of excitement, what kind of scrum was there?
There was a gargantuan scrum. I made the mistake of waiting outside and walking in with him and thinking, oh, there's not too many people here. And then it turned out there was all the big names that I can think of from the national media were there to watch him file. And what people should know about how he comported himself. After he submitted paperwork, he took questions from the reporters for more than 30 minutes. He took them on everything. He was just as good as you remember him being. A reporter from Boston asked one of the first questions, and Governor Patrick said, do you mind if we just let our hosts go first? This very sort of courtly, hospitable thing. He didn't look to me like he was missing a step.
Also on CBS this morning, he was ready on the wealth tax, ready on Medicare for All, which he doesn't support. He supports a public option. We had him on the radio, but for only a couple of minutes, so it was mostly just pleasantries. Do you agree with him? It's too late in the game?
I mean, look, he is... For me, I think it probably is too late to get in. But, he is an amazing campaigner. I think that's right. I think he and Bill Clinton are probably the best I've ever seen. And I don't know. I think a lot of it is going to depend on the money. That's not my area of expertise. I don't know how much money will be there for him. But certainly, he's going to be very effective at making his case.
Well, very quickly, the other thing that Todd emphasized this morning, so did your paper, the New York Times, Washington Post, all of his key players, with a couple of exceptions like Mo Cowan and a few others, are gone to other campaigns. So not only is there not an infrastructure of staff, there's also raising a ton of dough in a short period of time. That concerns you too, yes?
Yes, but let's be clear, though. He also sees a race that's wide open, and I think he's right about that, too. He doesn't think Biden can close the deal. He doesn't think Warren can close the deal. He thinks there's still an opportunity here, as does Michael Bloomberg, for somebody to get in. and really reshape this race.
18 candidates is the charm. That's his
not
motto.
a crazy thing to think.
There is a built-in fundraising base for him, and it's Wall Street. I mean, it is worth reminding people that Deval Patrick was on the board of Ameriquest, the subprime mortgage lender. He had a top job at Texaco, top job at Coca-Cola. Now he works at Bain Capital.
Does he want to spend the campaign explaining not just those jobs, but that's where all his money is coming from?
Well, I think that is a possible source of fundraising for him. It is also, I think, a real liability at this particular moment in American political history.
I think what he's counting on is being able to tap into the people who supported Obama and aren't sold yet on Biden and Sanders. And I think that's true logistically, and I think it's also true in terms of fundraising. He thinks there are a bunch of people out there who are looking for somewhere to go.
Can I ask you about one candidate and one non-candidate that came up in discussions this morning? Here's more from Chuck Todd. This is on Pete Buttigieg that he is talking about. Listen to Todd.
Here's what I don't understand. Why isn't he the front runner? Why aren't we talking about him as the front runner right now? He leads in Iowa. He's second or third in New Hampshire. He's the only one that's gaining in the polls.
He was actually fourth in New Hampshire, but he's totally right. He is surging in Iowa.
He's
number one in Iowa
because he's not leading anywhere.
Well, he is. That's not true. The most recent poll out of Monmouth, he is leading in Iowa.
Chuck,
yes.
Pete Buttigieg has zero African-American support.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the base of the party. He cannot possibly win the nomination unless he fixes that problem.
And if he wins Iowa in a surprise, you don't think he gets a second look from a whole swath of voters?
No. What happens in South Carolina?
Well, South Carolina comes after New Hampshire, and then down to
people have won Iowa and not won the nomination.
That is true, but one Barack Obama, I think, did pretty well after his surprise win out there.
No, I think that's right, and I tell you what, I think I listened to him, and I think that when it comes to communicating, he may be right up there with Bill Clinton and
Buttigieg. That is.
Yes, he is.
So it's 1-1. You want to break the tie
about whether Buttigieg should be considered the front runner
or considered a serious player?
I think I did a double take when I saw that Iowa poll, but it is just one poll. It's sort of his new moment to be taken.
But he's in
seriously
dead heat in Real Clear Politics in Iowa with Elizabeth Warren, by the way.
His progress is impressive, but it's a new trend, right? We'll see how long it lasts. It's also worth highlighting that he's basically making the exact same kind of pitch that Governor Patrick is making. They've got the same message of, don't advance only democratic solutions. Reach out to everyone.
Same place on Medicare for All too.
Medicare for All. There's other ways to fix this.
So if Patrick catches fire, Buttigieg could be hurt by that.
Okay, so we're going to try one more. Here's somebody who is not a candidate on the BBC on Tuesday. Here she is.
Look, as I say, never say never. And I will certainly tell you I'm under enormous pressure from many, many, many people to think about it.
The only person who kept a straight face during that was you, so I'll start with, well, not now. So I'll start with, never, many, three manys of people are suggesting she do this.
When I heard that Secretary Clinton had spoken those words, I've always thought that Donald Trump could only have been elected following the first African-American president and only running against Hillary Clinton, in part because of the misogyny that she inspires, but also the sort of obsession that people have with the Clintons and the loathing that the Clintons inspire.
Trevor Noah's great line is these two luckiest candidates in history. They're running against the only people they could ever possibly beat. So you had an odd look on your face when you saw that. What was that look saying?
There are many people who don't want her to run.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I can't imagine how it feels to walk around thinking you really won the presidential election and you're not president. So, nobody knows
an Al Gore
to be in her shoes, but
that's a fine point.
I mean, that's right. But look, I'm sure she's under enormous pressure, but I think she's probably under enormous pressure to go away.
You couldn't even make eye contact with me when you were saying that. Can we move on to yesterday just for a second? This is not, as I just said to two U.S. attorneys last night, I'm not asking what the impact would be in a courtroom. I'm asking what the impact was in America. Was the needle moved at all yesterday? Were there people who said, I'm looking at this whole thing differently based on these 6 hours of testimony and questions?
No, but I don't think that it was about moving the needle yesterday. I think that they're laying the groundwork, they're making the case. I think it's about moving the needle over time, and it's not about removing him from office. It's about changing the minds or affecting the thoughts of the few people out there who are undecided
for 2020.
That's what it's about.
I think that's mostly right. I think it's not about moving the needle over, day by day. I think it happens over time. I think in Watergate it happened over time. And I think this long impeachment trial that's coming is not going to be good for Donald
Did you
Trump.
think it was a good first day, though, for the Democrats, for those who are advancing?
Yes, absolutely.
With the general public. I don't mean, again, for people who spend
Yes,
their
but
lives.
I mean, we all know it's going to take a while for the general public to really lock in on this.
It seems to be unanimous so far, yes?
It struck me as a solid first day. I was actually kind of amazed at the narrative that was coming out of Fox, which was not to engage the substance of what the claims are at all, but they described the ambassadors as looking like homeless men, looking like guys who sat alone at recess, even taking into
literally
account
said that
Fox is Fox.
Yeah.
I found that really disheartening. I will also say that I'm one of these people who thought that the support for impeachment was not going to rise, that it was sort of locked in, and we've seen it go up a bunch in recent weeks. So,
that's even before the hearings, by the way.
Yep.
One last thing, the Republican response, Kevin McCarthy, for example, the leader of the Republicans in the House, said there's no new evidence. And then I say to myself when I hear that, well, the reason there's not a lot of new evidence is because the White House won't let anybody testify.
For heaven's sakes, he's already said he did 3/4.
That's Marjorie Egan's point. All you have to do is read the transcript, as Donald Trump says. But does the public get this misdirection play thing from the Republicans, whether it's Kevin McCarthy, whether it's Donald Trump saying Sondland says no quid pro quo, even though he's changed his testimony, or am I whistling in the dark on this kind of stuff? Adrian, starting with you.
I'm not sure where the public is on it, but I think support is rising, and I think it's going to continue to.
Charlie?
Yeah, no, I don't think the public gets the fine points, but I think the important thing is that these undecided voters need to move again, more in favor of impeachment. I think that's happening.
And so, but getting back to you think the goal of the Democrats here, who know that they don't have any Republican votes, maybe a Mitt Romney, your former boss, or somebody in the Senate for removal, is to soften up the president for next November.
Oh,
is that where you're going?
I think so. Sure.
Is that your sense of this?
I think there's an element of that, but I think they also believe that there is a risk heading into the election to be doing this. I think for a lot of them, maybe I'm naive, that there is a genuine belief that what he's done is so far beyond the pale that even if it ends up backfiring politically, you got to do it because that's what you're here for.
Well, as Adam Schiff said yesterday, if this isn't an impeachable offense, what is?
And think about what he might do 10 points down a few weeks out from an election next year.
You mean the election that'll be canceled? Charlie, it's nice to see you. Adrian, as always, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
Adam, thank you so much.